We're back with the Bee Gees on this week's edition of Rock Around the World, a special 90-minute edition at that. I was thinking back, September 1975, the main course LP, a certified hit, and as a result, lots of national TV exposure for the Bee Gees, including a number of appearances on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. You would ask, with all that exposure, has success changed the Bee Gees' public image?
We try to give an audience, I mean, let's say it this way, we are first, we're songwriters and singers and you know, we are performers of our music. But we are secondly a stage act.
Yeah.
Where a lot of groups first they're a stage act and then secondly they're songwriters.
We were brought up on stage. We were on stage long before we ever made records. You know, it's that type of thing. We've had variety training.
Well, none of us have ever had another
We've never
job.
been trained. I don't mean that. I mean we've
we've
been through all the clubs. We've been a club act. Before we got to make records, when we were too young to be
Australia's
hits,
young Milk Brothers.
we had to work to adults.
But anyway, now get off the track. That's what we are first. So when you say what we try to give an audience, we don't know. In that field, all we know is that we're giving them our best anyway.
But the idea is when we get on stage, the first thing we do is to work towards a wrap-up between us and the audience. No matter how big the audience is, you can do it. You can really gain a friendship between you and a large audience. It can be done.
This time now, we've just got 6 brass players and synthesizers and ourselves, and we're all one band now. And that was one of the shame of the Johnny Carson show. We couldn't use our own brass players.
And now, here's Johnny.
The show we did was a comedian show. There's a lot of comedians on that show that night. George Burns, Rich Little. It was a funny man show. So that by the time we got on, you couldn't lead around to us. You couldn't talk seriously about what we were doing, and we didn't want to at that point. We were in a good mood.
I mean, it was a lovely little shtick that Rich Little and I were doing. In the background, they cut the whole thing out.
You know what happens to them? They cut a lot of things out for one reason, is when the attention is taken away from Johnny Carson talking, they don't like that. So it doesn't matter what you're on the show for. The guests on that show are irrelevant. They don't tell us anything.
They just tell us what he's going to ask us.
Yeah, he rang me up, Howard, the producer, and he said, now, here's some sort of questions, what you'll be asked sort of thing. And he asked where we came...
Not what would you guys like to talk about?
No, he did. That's what it was about. But listen, he said, where are you living now? And we said, the Isle of Man. He said, what's it like? And it was a bit more lengthy, but I said, it's got a superstition. They have fairies, like Ireland has
leprechauns.
Manx cats. Yeah, right. Manx cats and fairies. He says, well, don't make any cracks about the fairies in the Isle of Man, because that's...
But the thing was like the same thing with Rich Little and I. I was doing this thing talking to... I never even spoke. I just smiled at him all the time. And Rich Little was getting this thing with me going. And then he turned around to the camera and said, if he doesn't stop it, I'm going to hit him with my purse.
Yeah, then I
did this Paul Lynn bit. And everybody in the audience broke up, and of course, they cut that out.
I was sitting nearest Johnny Carson. I stood up, past the wind, and
and
I think Johnny Carson, you could see a little sort of look of disapproval in his eyes, and then he turned away, but that was nothing. And then I sat on Ed McMahon's lap and gave him a sort of French kiss.
We're going to take a break here, and you can catch a shower. And then we'll be right back after this word, so stay tuned.
The first TV show we ever did was in Australia on Channel 2 in 1957.
These two you two were wearing shorts.
Yeah, 1957.
And they had to get 2 tea boxes and bring them in the studio for them two to stand on.
So we could be the same height as him.
So we'd all be the same height,
It was 1957. It was called Anything Goes, compared by Russ Tyson on Channel 2 in 1957.
In Brisbane. When we left Australia, we had a #1 record.
Yeah.
But we'd worked through about 12, 13 flops together.
We must be the only group with a history of 13 flop records in a row.
Oh yeah.
We've got a chocolate record for that.
You see, that's what happens with most groups that go on to become more respected. What happens in the beginning is that nobody takes much notice of the music, because when you're young, you got to go through the teeny bop phase.
Yeah, oh God, they look beautiful.
See,
I hate the music.
The great thing about songwriters is songwriters can't stay in one place.
Right.
Songwriters are, by a sort of call of God, got to go on and do something different. Even if most of the people out there want to say, why didn't you stick to what you're doing? You can't.
How much control did you have over your music?
None at all. It's awful.
That's not a problem.
No, we have absolute control.
Absolute control over our music. And
that's rare, though, for the beginning of a career.
It was
how much control did we have then, you
Then,
said?
I'm talking about.
None at all, really.
Actually,
now we have...
That's what I thought.
No, not necessarily. Our music, we had complete control. Over what happened to it, we had none.
Yeah,
that's what.
But we had a control over
there
the
were
production.
points where people were releasing demonstration records, which is awful. But
on
you know,
these tracks,
there was a song called "And the Sun Will Shine,"
Right.
which we had. That was a demo.
That was a
disc.
demo.
That wasn't even written. You know, the
we
words,
never
the
recorded
lyrics.
that in
for
a proper studio. We did that in a demo studio.
Only the vocal.
But the drag
didn't have
is,
the control over
you
it.
can't bring out an original album without it flopping because of all these saturation of them picking up flip sides everywhere, left, right, and centre, and sticking them on albums saying the golden years of such and the Bee Gees, and many hits of the Bee Gees. They're coming out every now and again. Nobody knows what's in
Then
original.
you start annoying the audience, but you didn't have
Exactly.
any control.
Well, there's one
Right. Not at all.
typical example. I was in Switzerland, learning to ski with not name dropping or anything, but no, it really was with Ringo Starr and his
dropping
wife,
skis.
and me and my wife. And we went there.
That is the skis.
In the early days, we recorded things like "Ticket to Ride" as jamming. We were just jamming, you know, like Payback Writer, Somewhere. Robin sang Somewhere with an orchestra thing.
That's
was
on
yeah.
12th of Never.
And
Same
12th
with
of
me.
Never.
Ballads, you know.
I was
And
on
that's
a-
all on one album.
And
No,
You Won't
reminds
See
me-
Me. All these tracks like the
I was on a
Beatles,
skiing trip.
whatever.
I was on a skiing trip
Shut
in
up a
Delhi.
minute, Rowan. Can I finish
And,
mine?
no, I was on a skiing trip in Delhi, and I was with Al Jolson at the time. We
Will you
walked into
shut
this
up?
record shop. Hang on, we walked into this record shop and we looked at this label. It had all these songs on it, and Al said to me, "Robin, look, the same song here as I'm singing." And and
Anyway,
you know,
as I
now-
was saying, we went into this shop and Richie saw this thing saying
Richie?
"Ticket to Ride" on
Richie?
it, and it's
Oh,
got
Richie.
Nostalgia and Inception album. And it's from Holland, and I opened it up and I said it was all the bloody songs we were jamming on. I brought the album back and I gave it to my dad, and Dad gave it to Barry, and Barry gave it to Robin, and passed it around and took copies of it. So the songs that were coming out at that time that a lot of people were covering. And I think one of the best covers were ever done was Andy Williams' "How Can You Mend a Broken Heart," and Johnny Mathis. He did a lovely
Someone
version
shaved
of
my
that.
wife tonight.
And Someone Kissed My Backside. That was great, that one. How Can You Mend a Twisted Fart? That was a good one as well.
Someone shaved my wife last night.
Yeah, that one was a good one.
Someone shaved my wife last
Is this
night.
what runs through your head?
Didn't
when
they?
you these things,
No, just sex.
Throughout the years, the Bee Gees put out many, many, many LPs, and the process of doing all those and finally coming to the large, large success of Main Course is the topic of our next conversation. Stay tuned for more with Maurice, Robin, and Barry, the Bee Gees on Rock Around the World.